Hi everyone, welcome back to Howay the Herbivores. My name's Ellen. If you've not been to our channel before, you may not know this, but we make videos about vegan food, ethical living, mental health, spoken word and stuff like that. So if that's the kind of thing you're interested in seeing in your subscription box, then please subscribe below. I really appreciate that. Today's video is about panic attacks and how to deal with them. If you suffer from panic attacks, or if a loved one of yours suffers with panic attacks, then hopefully this will help you with dealing with them and with comforting a loved one who deals with them and that kind of thing. So if that's the sort of thing you want to know more about, then please keep watching. Okay, first of all, in my experience, I've noticed that a lot of people that I do know who suffer from panic attacks, including myself at first, didn't actually realise that they were suffering with a panic attack, and that's what it was. So panic attacks can be mistaken for all kinds of different medical issues, including chest problems, stomach problems, shortness of breath, things like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the symptoms first, just to see whether you are actually suffering with panic attacks or whether your loved one is. With regards to chest pains especially, it's something that you need to make sure that it is this and not something a lot more serious. So I can only ever speak in my experience, and I am not a medical professional, so I'm not going to go into loads and loads of details about the science behind all of it. I'm just going to talk about what my experience has been with panic attacks and how I've managed to essentially cure my panic attacks. I do still suffer with anxiety, which is something I'll do another video about in the future, but I don't have panic attacks anymore unless something really, really off is happening in my life at the time. Yeah, with regards to panic attacks, the symptoms can often be chest pain, shortness of breath, blurred vision, a feeling of kind of detachment, as if you're not quite in a situation when you are there, and kind of fishbowl head, I like to call it, like as if your head's just like bloop, 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 like that. Digestive issues, so that can be cramps, diarrhea, vomiting, and shaking within the hands and the legs and things like that, and muscle weakness and all those kinds of things. So those are all very kind of generic symptoms. People maybe have different symptoms that play up stronger than others. I know my digestive issues are always a lot more strong. I did have chest pains, but nowhere near as much as I would have tummy pains and things like that, whereas I know some people who get chest pain to the point where they actually feel like they can't breathe. So that's kind of a little bit of background about what happens when you're having a panic attack. You could be in a situation that makes you feel upset or panicky or anxious. This could be, for me, it was often on public transport, or it was when I was in a place where I didn't feel like comfortable, or I felt kind of trapped, for example. So things like the metro were really awful at a time, and being in the car with somebody I didn't know that well was quite tough, and even being in the car with Craig sometimes was quite hard as well. Panic attacks often occur in situations where you feel uncomfortable. One thing I did find was that panic attacks often occurred where I had another panic attack previously, or in a similar situation. If I was on the metro and I had a feeling of panic, next time I was on the metro it would be much harder to get on the metro because I would be nervous I would have one, and then when I was on the metro I would have one. That's kind of the way it works. It's a lot to do with innate and primitive section of your brain, which is to do with reinforcing habits. So if you feel one way in a certain place, you will feel that way again when you return to that place and things like that. So that's kind of how it works. Like I say, I'm not an expert on this, but what I can say is that a lot of it comes from the fight or flight mechanism. So fight or flight is something that has been within our psyche since we were cavemen, and what happens is when you are faced with a danger, or a danger that your brain deems to be a danger, in a situation where your brain thinks you're in danger, it will either choose to fight or flight. So fight is where you confront and you obviously maybe have to fight an enemy. Flight is when you have to run away. So that is why, if you are used to having panic attacks, you will know that often it feels better to remove yourself from the situation. However, when you remove yourself from the situation, returning back to that situation can be really, really difficult, especially if it's not a real danger. So if you're on the metro and you're having a panic attack, so you get off, which is something that I used to do all the time, next time you get on the metro it's going to be even harder to be on the metro because last time you had to get off. What your brain is doing is something very primitive, and it's something that your brain is taught to do. And as a result, you're not weird, you're not stupid, you're not different in a bad way, different to everybody else. And actually these are symptoms that a lot of people suffer with, and just because you can't see them on people's faces, often it doesn't mean that they're not suffering with that as well. So a little bit about how I dealt with panic attacks. I have had CBT, so cognitive behavioural therapy, on a couple of occasions, and that was a lot to do with the panic side of my anxiety. That was things like not being able to go to certain places, avoiding certain places, feeling like I was trapped when I was in certain places, and as a result it became very restrictive on my life, and I purposefully avoided doing things that I didn't want to do because they would make me feel anxious or therefore make me have a panic attack. When I did have a panic attack, I felt like the whole world was crashing down on me, especially pains in my stomach. I would go really kind of fizzy headed is what I used to call it, where I couldn't really see, I couldn't really breathe, I couldn't really see what was going on around me, I couldn't really appreciate the present, which is something that is really important when dealing with anxiety, and I couldn't really get out of that. CBT helped a lot, and it's something that I would definitely recommend looking up. I got it on the NHS, but I do know that there are some really good online courses for CBT, and if it's something that you feel like might help. CBT is essentially a constructive and productive way of dealing with anxiety and depression and things like that, but there are some really good patterns within there and new habit forming activities that can help when you suffer with anxiety and panic attacks. So getting back to panic attacks themselves, when you are in that moment and you feel like you can't breathe and you feel like you need to remove yourself from the situation, that is when you are in that moment where you can decide whether you're going to stay in that situation or whether you need to get out. One of the greatest books I've ever read was called Dare, the Dare Response, linked to the Amazon link. I've got it on my Kindle, so I'll put a copy of the book here so you can actually see what it's called. But it is a 4-stage response, and DARE is an acronym, so there are 4 elements to that to helping you tackle anxiety, and the author has written it in his own personal experience, so he also suffered with anxiety, and now he is a advocate for his own kind of studies and things like that, and I think it's really, really helped, because what it helps you to do is it helps you to have this kind of process to follow and gives you something for your rational brain to do while you're in a panic attack. So what it helps you do is it helps you recognise the situation that you're in, understand the fact that you're not in danger, and then it helps you stay within that situation and see the panic out, which is 100% the hardest thing. If you've ever had a panic attack, you will know that when you're in that situation, all you want to do is get out. Whether it's you want to leave the room, or whether you want to go to the toilet, or whether you want to go outside, whatever it is, you need to leave that situation. But in reality, you are never going to get over the anxiety, and you are never going to get over the fear of the anxiety, of the panic, or whichever element and order it works in. You are never going to be able to get over that unless you see the panic through. I suppose when you're in this situation and you know you need to see the panic through, and I'm nowhere near 100% over this because this is still something that I suffer with now, I would highly recommend having something maybe on your phone or in a little notebook if you've got the opportunity to look at that while you're in these situations, where you have a list of things that help you in that moment. So I often like to use kind of positive affirmations, so things like I'm not in danger, this situation is not dangerous, I am okay, and then you kind of become aware of your physical and of your present. I suppose the next element of this is guided meditation and meditative practices, and I think meditation can often sound to be a bit of a poncy, like one of those terms you think, oh, I can't do it, I can't clear my mind. It's not about clearing your mind, actually, it's just about being able to sit and exist with your thoughts and eventually witness your thoughts and recognise that your thoughts are just thoughts for an extended period of time. And this is something that you have to do regularly, so there's no point in downloading the Headspace app or Calm app or like I mentioned previously, The Honest Guys on YouTube is my favourite channel for guided meditation. You can't do this when you're in an anxious state. You have to do this when you're at your most relaxed, whether that's at home or whether that's in bed at night or when you first wake up. You have to practice this so that these are the kinds of skills you will employ when you are in the panic stage. You would never be expected to just go and run a marathon tomorrow. If you were going to run a marathon, you would train for 6 months or 9 months or however long you train for a marathon for, and you would train and you would train and you would train, and then eventually you will be able to tackle the hardest feat and the hardest challenge, which is the marathon. And your brain can be trained in the same way as your muscles, and by reiterating positive habits, whether it's affirmations, guided meditation, cognitive behavioural therapy and those kinds of elements of that, or whether it's reading books and it's gratitude as well, which I mentioned in the previous video, all these elements will help you when you are in that moment, when you are in your marathon, when you are ready and you are running your marathon because you're getting on the metro or you are going into a work meeting and you feel so panicked, you are able to employ these methods. That's kind of what's helped me with my overcoming of my panic attacks, and eventually my body's just thought, I'm not in danger. Last time I was in this situation I was fine, I didn't have to leave, because when I did leave, that was what made it much more scary the next time. So when I was able to sit through a situation, whether it was a metro journey between 2 stops that was taking a long time, or whether it was in a meeting, or whether it was on a phone call, anything that makes you feel anxious, when you are able to do that to completion, you will then start to create the positive habit and retrain your brain into thinking, actually this is possible, I can do this without anxiety, and if I do suffer with anxiety then that's okay because it's not going to kill me and I'm not going to die of a panic attack. Hopefully this video helped, and that's kind of only just my personal experiences with panic attacks and how I personally deal with them, but there are plenty of resources on the internet that I will leave below for things like the DARE response, which I have helped a lot, some great places to find positive affirmations and some great positive habits to bring into your life that will help you in that time, because like I've said, if you were running a marathon, you wouldn't just run the marathon, you would train your body repeatedly until you were able to achieve that. And if your marathon is something as simple as going outside of your front door or going to the corner shop, then that's completely fine. It just means that you have to start small and you have to create these positive habits which will eventually take you up to being able to tackle your marathon and then eventually be able to, you know, do anything you want. The world is your oyster. Thank you very much for watching this video, and please join me again for the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe if that's the kind of thing you want to see in your sub box, and thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye!